guys know what makes me sad? Can you hear that? No, you can't. It's a rubber dome keyboard, and if you type on this every day, work is kind of boring. You know what makes me happy? Mechanical keyboards, and today we have two of them to unbox for you. We've got the K70, this is the brown switch edition, and we've got its bigger brother, the K95, that all come in red switches. So today we'll be talking about not only the differences between the K70 and the K95, but also the differences between the red and brown switches. Okay, I know you've been waiting for the unboxing, and here it is. You know, we had two products, and I think your time is important too, so if you missed that box cutting and knife experience where we pull out all the wrappers and have trouble opening the plastic, I'm really sorry. But I thought I'd just lay it all out in front of you so that we could get right into the review of the different keyboards. As you can see, we've got the K70 in the front, the K95 in the back, and the wrist rest that each one comes with on the side. Of course, the larger one belonging to the K95. The K70 actually comes with a few replacement keys as well that the K95 does not. Interesting thing to note about the K70, it comes in brown, red, and blue switches. And different designs in the black aluminum brushed metal and the silver gunmetal designs. Both are very good looking. The black one is featured in the back, and I find both of them to be pretty solid. The cables on both of these are very solid and have not only one but two USBs. One is simply a USB pass-through, so that's what that's all about. And the cable is stiff enough where it won't break on you in the future, and won't be like one of those gaming mice that you've had. Now everybody's had one of these where you actually have to cut the braid on the cable so you can move the mouse around. I've had that several times in the past. This cable is definitely not going to be like that. It's so stiff I can hardly even bend it. So you should be more than fine with that. As you can see, we've got the boxes in the back. Now for me, keyboard could come, we've got boxing in the back. I'm not sure if you guys know Brian Regan. Anyway, I'll move on from that, but if you don't know Brian Regan, go look him up. But we've got the box in the back, and again, boxes to me are just that. They're boxes, and if a product was $5 cheaper and came to my door in plastic wrap, I would get it every time. So to me, boxes end up going in the recycle waste pretty much as soon as possible, because in this house there is just not room for boxing. So anyway, now let's take a more in-depth look. Okay, so first let's take a close look at the K70 keyboard. This is the one that I'm going to be using for my own computer. It's got the brown switches, which I prefer, which just has a little bit of the tactile bump in it. We'll talk about that later. And just has a little bit of feedback to it in terms of how it sounds, and kind of has a low feedback to it, which is really nice and very satisfying when you are typing. But one of the main things that I wanted on this keyboard was not only durable construction, which as you can see it has. It's a very heavy keyboard, but also these media keys up here. You've got your stop, fast forward, rewind, pause, and your mute button, but most important of all, your volume scroll wheel, which I don't know if you're like me, but in games you don't have to exit out to volume or do options or things like that, or even change it on your headset. So for me, it's just a quick flip of that volume scroll wheel and I'm there, and I'm golden. You can also lock out your Windows key, which is a huge plus because hitting the Windows key in a game actually leads to death 125% of the time, and so you can lock that out to prevent that as well. Both the K70 and the K95 have the anti-ghosting N key rollover, which means you can press up to like 20 keys at once without it losing what you enter in. That's not really me. I don't do more than just a few keys at one time. But I know you say the same guys that are doing like the 9,000 DPI headshots from like 2 miles away. Those guys, they're typing like, you know, 40 keys at once, so they're on a whole nother level. So anyway, if you need that kind of thing, it's there for you, and it's really a nice feature actually in terms of when you really get going in games, you actually do press quite a few buttons at once. Let's take a quick look at the back. As you can see, you've got 4 ways to adjust the height. That's not really my thing. I prefer to have my keyboard flat on the ground. Otherwise, I have a bunch of typos and mistakes, and it just doesn't feel right. In fact, the wrist rest to me kind of gets in the way as well. If you don't want that on there, it doesn't come with it on. Let's see if I can slide this out like that. You can take the wrist rest off pretty easily and just set it up any way that you want, which is really nice. I think when you have a keyboard, and if you do a lot of typing like I do, you want to be able to sit as comfortably as possible. So it's nice that Corsair gave us all of these options. One quick thing that the K70 has that the K95 does not have is these replacement keys and tools for your WASD and 1 through 6 keys, your most used keys when you're playing, like, you know, your FPS games, and also when you're doing your action RPG games, stuff like that. These are where your like spells, your weapons, your movement comes out of, and it's really nice to have these better textured keys that really stick out on your keyboard. Again, you don't get that in the K95. Okay, for the K95, we got the red switch edition, which is the only one that's available. Quick note, not sure if I mentioned it before, but the K95 is only available in the red switches and this color black aluminum. So keep that in mind when you're ordering this particular keyboard. It's a little more expensive, about $30 more than the K70, so something else to keep in mind. And one of the reasons that is because it simply has more keys and therefore more mechanical keys, and it's just a more expensive keyboard to manufacture. As you can see, we have the 18G keys here and various profiles that you can manage them with. And you know, if you're playing WoW or you know, if you just need a lot of macros, that can be heaven sent. But for me, what it causes is typos. Whenever I use a keyboard with a lot of G keys, I usually use my pinky as a reference point over here, and so it just makes me have a lot of difficulty that way. So I prefer the no-nonsense approach to a keyboard like the K70 or some of the other keyboards out there, but many people don't mind those G keys, and they get used to it, and you will get used to it over time, and they won't feel in the way. Now, that's one additional feature that this has. Just like the K70, it comes with a slightly larger wrist rest that actually pops in pretty much the same way and then screws in the side as well. Okay, so I don't have like every keyboard to try out here to tell you the difference between the switches, but we have the red here on top. The red is a linear switch, which means it's pretty much the same approach to all the keys. It's very smooth. I actually find it, for myself, it a little bit difficult to type on a red mechanical switch because you can't like rest your fingers down. Now, if you're very methodical in the way you type and the way that you game, and you don't rest your hands on the keyboard, things like that, then it's really not that big of a deal. But you know, if you are a person that likes to kind of be careless about where you're putting your hands on your keyboard, then maybe a red switch isn't for you. That being said, if you are methodical, a red switch is really nice for gaming because it's just so fast. The actuation point is at 45 grams, which is at 2 millimeters. These things from top to bottom are 4 millimeters. So about halfway down, both the red switch, both your red switch and brown switch will actuate. Now, one thing to note is that while the red switch is linear and does not have a tactile bump or a bump in the middle, the K70, which is brown, does, and that's halfway down at the actuation point. That's something to keep in mind. So if you're looking for a mechanical keyboard that has that little bump, then again, red switches don't have that. They're very fluffy, like a cloud. That'd be a good description. They're a very light black switch if you've ever used that before. So let's just give a good example of what these sound like. Now, when I was in school, we used to have typing class, and when we got through the typing portion, once we could get to a certain amount of words per minute, we could move on to like games like Oregon Trail and Number Munchers and things like that, which I love to do. And so there's one sentence that would always come up in this typing game that they had, and it was a girl goes right into her grass region. So let's just see what that sounds like on here. A girl, oh, I'm like a little bit stuck here. Okay, a girl goes right into a grass region. Okay, so that's how it sounds like. That's me bottoming out every key, but you certainly don't have to do that. You know, it would actuate doing typing just like this. And although the red switches don't have what they call tactile feedback, I got a lot of flack for saying something like that in my last video. They do have feedback. They're still a mechanical keyboard. They do have a very satisfying sound to them. And so keep in mind that there's already a difference just from going from a rubber dome keyboard to a mechanical keyboard in how it sounds. Now, it doesn't have quite the sound that the brown does, but that might be good for some of you. Some of you are probably annoyed by blue switch keyboards, and rightfully so. They've got that high-pitched sound to them, but the brown is a little bit lower, a little bit more subtle, and something that I find just a little more gratifying. Let's try that same sentence. Okay, there we go. That was, again, that's me bottoming out every key. But again, at halfway down, it's not nearly as loud and or annoying to others. But you know, I actually like the sound of this one because it doesn't have that again, that high pitch of the blues, and it's not as hard to press down as the blues. Has the same actuation point at halfway down as the reds do. So again, brown switches probably my favorite in terms of what I use, but again, the K70 available in the brown, blue, and red. Okay, so as you can see in the picture, we have the blue backlights that come with the K70 and the white LED backlights that come with the K95. Now, all of these can be adjusted in terms of their brightness, and you can also switch the profiles, which keys you want lit. This is a little more extensive on the K95 with these particular buttons here. You've got more programmable options, but I myself typically just switch between these two, where I highlight the keys that I use the most, or program them in. If you wanted, you could program in again any key that you wanted. You just hold down this and then program them in that way. But I pretty much just go between these two, and this actually can be very bright. I don't know if you can see it on this video, but these lights can actually be very bright. So actually, most of the time I just kind of do mine on the second setting, because this third one is somewhat like a laser beam. So anyway, fantastic LED lights. They look great. You have the subtleness of the white with the K95 and the really nice blue LED in front with the K70. Okay, that's the end of my review. As you can tell, I really like the K70 mechanical keyboard. It's now sitting here right on my desk, and it will be until another mechanical keyboard comes and takes its place. I really like the brown switches, and so any keyboard kind of like this that's pretty durable with brown switches is going to be pretty similar, but I really like the features and the durable construction of the K70. What do I think about the K95? Well, I don't really like that you can't buy different switches with the K95. I also am not partial to the G keys. That being said, there's someone out there who absolutely thinks the K95 is the best mechanical keyboard out there, and I totally get it. You know, you can use the G keys with for macros on any game you play, and it works out really well. Coming up soon, we've got a mechanical keyboard guide with my favorite picks for not only the red, the brown, but the blue, the green, and other switches out there. And so we can look forward to that. We also have an mini ITX build featuring the 750 Ti. This build's going to go right in front of my TV. And we also have another budget build in addition to that coming up. Join me on Facebook.com/Top10Gamer, and if you have a question about this video or any of the other videos I've done, you can ask me there, and if I don't know the answer to it, I will go look it up and find the answer. We're trying to create a community, and speaking of community, if anybody in this community has a product that they'd like me to review, please let me know. I will consider going out and purchasing that product and doing a review of it. So in the future, hopefully we can not only do that where I go out and buy something, bring it back, I can also afford to give it away. That all depends on the community size, and you guys can help me with that by pressing that like and subscribe button. Also, If you're a gamer and you have a channel and you'd like me to feature whatever it is that you do really, really well, then drop me a line on Facebook and I'll consider featuring it here on this channel. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.